My parents forced me to hand over the $30,000 I had saved with so much hard work and sweat, just so my sister could enjoy life and be happy. When I refused, my mother shouted, "Drop out of university and clean the house. Your sister is smarter than you." I left without looking back. A year later, when they saw me at the head of a major company, they were speechless. My name is Regina, and I have a twin sister named Jade. You might think being twins would bring us closer together, but nothing could be further from the truth. While we were born on the same day, that's where our similarities end. From the very beginning, it was clear I wasn't exactly what my parents had planned for. They had only intended to have one child, and I became the extra. Jade has always been the favourite, with her delicate features resembling our mother, blonde hair and blue eyes. Me? I inherited traits from my father's side of the family. My dark hair and sharp eyes mirrored my paternal grandmother, the one my mother never seemed particularly fond of. My grandmother's shop was my sanctuary. As soon as I stepped inside, the scent of leather and polish enveloped me like a comforting hug. The soft clatter of heels against the wooden floor echoed gently, muffling the chaotic noise of life at home. In that space, I felt truly at ease. It felt more like home than the cramped apartment we lived in. "My little businesswoman," my grandmother would say, her voice brimming with warmth as I burst through the door after school. Her face, lined with years of laughter and wisdom, lit up with genuine joy whenever she saw me. With her, I felt truly seen and valued. I began helping out in the shop when I was still very young, barely tall enough to reach the counter without assistance. She'd place a stool so I could watch her work on the old cash register. As I grew older, I took on more responsibilities, learning every detail of how the shop operated. At home, things were vastly different. "Regina, why? Can't you just wear what your sister wears?" My mother sighed, trying once again to force me into a frilly pink dress. Jade looked beautiful in everything, but I felt ridiculous. I stood in front of the mirror, wearing a shiny sweatshirt emblazoned with a large logo, muttering under my breath, "I look stupid." As we grew older, the differences in how we were treated became even more pronounced. Jade was the perfect princess, incapable of doing anything wrong. I, on the other hand, was labelled the worker. "You need to try harder and make something of yourself," my father would say. "After that, you can help take care of your sister and the family." But we were the same age. "Why doesn't Jade have to work as hard too?" I'd protest. My mother would give me that particular look, the one that meant I was being difficult again. "Your sister has other talents," she'd reply. "You need to focus on being responsible." Responsibility. That was the key word. It was their way of saying, do everything we tell you and don't complain. We lived in a small apartment, and money was always tight. My father worked as an insurance agent, and my mother was an assistant in a boutique. Despite this, Jade always got what she wanted: new clothes, modern gadgets, anything she desired. The only thing that gave me hope was the secret my grandmother kept. When we were born, my paternal grandmother gave my parents a substantial amount of money. It was supposed to be set aside for our university, education. "This money is for you and Jade to go to college," my grandmother told me one day while I was spending a few days with her. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I clung to that promise like a lifeline. It was the only thing that made me believe I had a future, something beyond a life of sacrifice for others. As our 17th birthday approached, I allowed myself a glimmer of hope. Maybe now, being older, they'd finally start treating us equally. Maybe they'd see who I really was, not just as Jade's shadow. How wrong I was. On the morning of our birthday, the sky was clear and bright. Jade was still asleep, probably dreaming about the big party our mother had been planning for weeks. I was already in the kitchen, my stomach churning with stress and dread. I had just finished my toast when my father called me into the living room. His face was serious, and he held a small metal box. My mother stood beside him, her lips pressed into a thin, firm line. "Regina?" My father began, his tone formal as if speaking to a stranger. "It's time you learn responsibility and saving money." He handed me the box. It was heavier than it looked, cold to the touch. Inside was a safe deposit key. A heavy weight settled in my stomach, like a stone sinking into deep water. "If you want to go to university, you'll need to earn your own money," my mother said, her voice sharp and emotionless. She placed the small metal box in front of me. "This is for you to keep your savings." Felt like I'd been punched, unable to breathe. For a moment, I couldn't speak. When I finally found my voice, it came out small and trembling. "And the money Grandma gave for our education? Where is it?" The room seemed to grow colder. My mother's eyes narrowed, and my father suddenly became fascinated by the wall behind me. "There's no money for your education, Regina," my mother replied, her voice cutting like a knife. "You'll have to earn it yourself if you want to study." My heart raced. This couldn't be true, but my grandmother had told me. Before I could finish the thought, my mother interrupted, her voice firm and full of warning. "Not a word about this to your grandmother." My mother's eyes sparkled, and my blood froze in my veins. "If you do that," she said, her voice sharp as a blade, "I'll make sure you never see her again. Do you understand?" I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat nearly suffocating me. I nodded, unable to utter a sound. My grandmother was the only person who truly cared about me, the one who made me feel important. The thought of never seeing her again was unbearable. I clenched the tiny key in my hand so tightly its sharp edges dug into my skin, but I barely felt the pain. Meanwhile, the apartment buzzed with energy. Jade's friends filled every corner of the living room, laughing loudly and chatting enthusiastically. I stayed in the kitchen, invisible as always. My mother had made it clear that I wasn't allowed to invite anyone. "It's Jade's party, Regina," Dad called out, his tone overly cheerful, as if trying to mask reality. "Come on, it's time." Dragging my feet, I entered the living room. Jade sat in front of an enormous cake, her face glowing as the candles reflected their light. Everyone began to sing. She closed her eyes, made a wish and blew out the candles. The room erupted in cheers and applause. I picked up the knife and silently started cutting slices of the cake, handing them out to Jade's friends. No one even noticed I was there. Finally, I took a piece for myself. The frosting was sickeningly sweet, making me feel nauseous. That's when I noticed my parents exchanging a meaningful look. I knew that look. Something big was about to happen. "Jade, sweetheart, we have a surprise for you," Dad said with a smile. "Come with us to the parking lot," Mum added, excitement spilling from her voice. Jade leapt up, her eyes wide with anticipation, practically running out the door with Mum and Dad close behind. 15 minutes later, she returned to the apartment, her face radiant with joy. She waved a set of car keys, spinning them around her finger. My parents beamed. "They bought me a car," she shouted, her voice full of emotion. The room exploded in applause once more. Her friends rushed toward her, hugging her and asking to see the vehicle. Me? I just stood there, still holding my empty plate. They had bought Jade a car, and all I'd received was a key to an empty locker. "I have the best parents in the world," Jade exclaimed, skipping over to where I sat. She dangled the keys in front of me, grinning. "So, sis, what did you get me?" I stared at her, my mind completely blank. A car. They had bought her a car, and me. All I had was an empty locker and a future filled with debt. Jade's smile grew smug. "Where's my present?" Something inside me snapped. My silence was replaced by rising anger. "Here's my gift to you," I spat, standing up so quickly my chair nearly toppled over. "I hope you like it." I stormed off toward our shared bedroom, ignoring the sudden silence that fell behind me. My hands trembled as I grabbed my suitcase and began throwing clothes into it. "Regina, what are you doing?" My mother's voice came from the doorway, more irritated than concerned. "I'm leaving." I replied without looking at her. I'm going to stay with Grandma. I brushed past her, dragging my suitcase behind me. She grabbed my arm, her fingers gripping my wrist tightly. Remember, she hissed, not a word about the car or college money. I yanked my arm free and left without saying goodbye. No one tried to stop me. The bus ride to Grandma's house felt endless. By the time I arrived, the sun was already setting, and the evening air was cool. Grandma opened the door, tears filling her eyes when she saw me. Regina, what are you doing here, dear? I thought you were celebrating with your friends. Of course, another lie from Mum. I just wanted to see you, I murmured, suddenly, exhausted. Can I stay here tonight? Of course, sweetheart, she said, stepping aside to let me in. That night, as I lay in the soothing quiet of Grandma's guest room, everything that had happened during the day swirled through my mind. The locker, the car, the party. It all felt like a nightmare. I wanted to tell Grandma everything, to unburden myself, but my mother's threat echoed in my head. I couldn't risk losing the only person I had left. The next morning, as Grandma bustled around the kitchen preparing breakfast, an idea began to form in my mind. I took a deep breath and spoke. Grandma, I was thinking, maybe I could work in your shoe store. Really learn the ropes. Maybe stay here for a while too. Things are so chaotic at home with Jade and everything. She turned to me, spatula in hand, and her face softened. A warm smile spread across her lips. Oh, my dear, of course you can, she said. It would be wonderful to have you around more often. And so, my life changed. After some school, I started working in Grandma's shoe shop, learning more about how businesses operate. She was incredibly patient, teaching me everything, from managing inventory to handling difficult customers. Every evening, we closed the shop together and went home. Grandma cooked dinner and asked about my day, genuinely interested in my answers. For the first time in my life, I felt truly cared for, loved. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I never went back home. Honestly, I didn't want to. Mum and Dad never called, never asked how I was doing. It was as if I had vanished from their lives, and they were perfectly fine with it. Grandma insisted on paying me a full salary, saying I deserved it. I saved every penny I could, watching my bank account slowly grow. No matter how kind Grandma was, university still felt like a distant dream. No matter how much I saved, it never seemed enough. Before I knew it, my 19th birthday came and went, and soon it was time for high school, graduation. I sat in the auditorium, watching as Jade's name was called. My parents clapped enthusiastically, their faces glowing with pride among the crowd. When my name was announced, only Grandma cheered, sitting in the back row. Her applause filled the void where my parents' love should have been. After the ceremony, I stood there, observing as my parents showered Jade with attention, taking photos, giving gifts, hugging her as if she were the most amazing thing in the world. They didn't even glance at me once. It hurt, but by this point I was almost used to it. You did such a wonderful job, my dear, Grandma said, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you. On the way home, I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I finally spoke the words I'd been holding onto for months. Grandma, I don't think I'm going to university this year. She frowned, confused. But why, sweetheart? The money, the funds your parents set aside for your education, shouldn't that be enough? My stomach tightened at the memory of my mother's threat echoing in my mind. I quickly scrambled for an excuse. I just want to save up more first, I replied, hoping my voice sounded convincing. I want to afford my own apartment near campus, be independent, you know? Grandma studied me carefully, and I held my breath, praying she wouldn't notice the lie. Finally, she nodded. That's very mature of you, Regina, she said. If that's what you want, I'll support you. I exhaled in relief. While Jade packed for university, buying new clothes, dorm supplies, and everything else she might need, I threw myself into work at the shop. Every day I learned something new, not just about shoes, but also about life, business, and responsibility. Living with Grandma and working at the store became my new routine. Each morning began early, helping her with breakfast, then heading to the shop together. The smell of leather and polish, which had once been my refuge, now gave me a sense of belonging. I dedicated myself to work with more focus than ever before. During the day, I helped customers find the perfect pair of shoes, keeping a smile on my face even when dealing with the most difficult ones. In the evenings, after closing the shop, I scrubbed the floors, reorganised shelves and made sure everything was spotless for the next day. "You've got real talent for this, Regina," Grandma would sometimes say, as she watched me handle a tricky return or persuade a customer to buy shoe care products. Over time, she began teaching me more about the business, inventory management, financial statements and paperwork. It wasn't always easy, but I absorbed every lesson like a sponge. "You know," Grandma remarked one night while we reviewed the monthly accounts, "you could end up running this place someday. You've got the mindset of a businesswoman, just like your grandfather." Her words filled me with a pride I'd never felt before. For the first time in my life, someone saw potential in me. Still, my dream of going to university never faded. Every paycheck I received was almost entirely saved, spending only on basic necessities. It wasn't easy. I saw girls my age walk into the shop with shopping bags, laughing with their friends. I watched them try on beautiful shoes I could easily afford with my employee discount, but I chose not to. Every time I turned down an outing or a new purchase, I reminded myself of my goal. The year flew by in a whirlwind of shoeboxes, receipts, and meticulously filed pay stubs. Then one day, I checked my bank account and stared at the number on the screen, barely able to believe what I saw. I had done it. I had saved enough for university. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in over a year. After a few rings, my mother answered, her voice surprised. "Hello?" "Hi, Mum," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just wanted to let you know I've saved enough for university. I'm applying for the next semester." There was a long silence. Then she spoke. "Why don't you come over? We should talk about this in person." I agreed, a swirl of emotions churning inside me. After hanging up, I caught my reflection in the shop window. The girl staring back at me wasn't the same one who had left a year ago. She was stronger, more confident. When I walked into the old apartment, something had changed. The familiar scent of home was gone, replaced by the smell of fresh paint. My mother greeted me with a forced smile and quickly ushered me inside. "Oh, Regina, come see what we've done with the place." She beamed, guiding me through the living room. My father followed behind, nodding as she pointed out each new detail: the new couch, the sophisticated dining set, the expensive decorations. Then we stopped in front of what had once been my room. I froze in place as the door opened, revealing a space perfectly decorated, like something out of a design magazine. But it was clear this room had been created for one person only. "We hired a designer," my mother exclaimed, beaming with pride. "Isn't it perfect for Jade?" I stood there, feeling like a stranger in my own past. "Where are all my things?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My books, my photos, everything I'd left behind. Where had it all gone? My parents exchanged a quick glance before Mum replied, her voice too sweet, too fake. "Oh, sweetheart, we had to throw away all that old clutter. You understand, don't you? We needed to make room for new energy." It felt like a punch to the gut. Years of memories, pieces of my life, tossed away like trash. I blinked hard, trying to hold back tears. "Why did you ask me to come here?" I managed to say, keeping my voice steady even though inside I was crumbling. My mother's smile faltered for a split second. "Let's sit down, okay? I'll make us some tea." Before I knew it, I was perched on the edge of the couch, a cup of tea in front of me and a plate of my old favourite cookies. They tasted like dust in my mouth. My mother's voice grew softer, almost syrupy. "Regina, darling, we're in a bit of a situation. Just listen for now, all right? It's about Jade." She hesitated, then continued. She decided university wasn't for her. She dropped out after a year. And now, well, all that money has gone to waste. The money that was supposed to be for both of you. She paused, avoiding my gaze. We need help. About $30,000 to be exact. I nearly choked on my tea. But that's almost all the money I've saved for university. My voice came out strained, but her expression remained unreadable. She reached out to touch my hand, but I clenched my fingers into a tight fist, resisting the urge to pull away. Regina, she began, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Do you really need university? You're doing so well at Grandma's shop, and you live with her. You don't have many expenses. My mind spun. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother leaned closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. Jade needs an apartment. She has a boyfriend now, and they want to live together. We thought maybe we could use the money for a down payment on a mortgage. She stopped abruptly, realizing what she'd just admitted. Her eyes darted to my father, whose face stiffened with discomfort. A heavy silence filled the room, charged with unspoken truths. I took a deep breath, bracing myself against the wave of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Then I looked directly into her eyes and said, "No." I held my ground, my voice firmer than I would have imagined. "I'm not giving you the money." My mother's face changed instantly. First she paled, then her skin flushed with anger. Her eyes narrowed, filled with fury. "Why don't you sell Jade's car?" I suggested, my voice calm despite the storm raging in my mind. "Or use the money Grandma gave me?" My mother's lips twisted into a sneer as she spat her next words, venom lacing her tone. "There's no money left, Regina. Every penny was spent. On Jade's car, the house renovations, furniture, clothes, and now the car is totaled from an accident while she was drunk. Insurance won't cover it." She paused, savouring each word as it hit me like a blow. All that money, the money meant for my future, had been squandered on luxury, neglect, and Jade's poor decisions. But my mother didn't stop there. Her voice turned sickeningly sweet again. "Besides, dear, girls like you don't really need university. You should focus on finding a good husband." The casual way she dismissed my dreams, my hard work, my entire future ignited a fire within me. "And what about what I want, Mom?" My voice trembled with rage and disbelief. She waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away an annoying fly. "We're thinking of you, Regina. This apartment will be yours. When we're gone, isn't that enough?" I couldn't help it. I laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "I don't want your apartment. I want an education." My mother's face twisted in anger, becoming almost unrecognisable. She stepped forward, her voice dropping to a low, menacing tone. "You'll do as you're told, Regina. Give us the money, now." But something inside me had shifted. The fear that had controlled me for so long had finally shattered, completely destroyed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of her. With a speed that surprised even me, I ducked under her outstretched arm and bolted for the door. Their voices followed me down the stairs, a storm of threats, curses, and desperate demands. But with every step I took, their words lost their grip on me. When I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face, clearing my mind like a splash of icy water. My thoughts raced. Then, like a lightning strike, an idea stopped me in my tracks. Why had I never told Grandma about the money? The money she gave my parents for our education. The money they wasted on Jade. I had stayed silent out of fear that my mother would follow through on her threat and keep me away from Grandma. But now I was 19 years old. I was an adult. They couldn't control me anymore, nor could they decide who I could or couldn't see. For the first time in a long while, I knew exactly what I had to do. I walked into Grandma's house, and before I could stop myself, the words poured out like a dam breaking. I told her everything. The money she had given my parents for Jade's and my education, how they'd spent it all on Jade, how they'd forced me to carve my own path, and then tried to take even that away. Grandma listened in silence, her face darkening with every word I spoke. When I finally finished, she sat quietly for a long moment, her hands gripping her knees tightly. Then, in a low, furious voice, she muttered, "Those manipulative liars." She took a deep breath and shook her head. "Regina, my dear, I'm so sorry. I should have checked on this years ago." Before I could say anything, she was already on her feet, phone in hand. I watched, torn between admiration and maybe a hint of fear as she dialed my parents' number. What followed was like watching a storm brew. At first, my parents denied everything, but Grandma was relentless. Her voice rose with every excuse they gave, growing louder with every lie they told. Eventually, they cracked. "How dare you!" my father shouted from the Saint-Ocher, other end of the line. "Regina, you ungrateful snitch!" Grandma's eyes flashed dangerously. "Don't you dare speak to her like that!" she shot back, and without another word, she hung up. She turned to me, her expression softening. "Regina, my dear, I promise you I'll protect your future. Focus on your dreams and let me handle them." The following weeks flew by as I threw myself into university applications. For the first time in my life, I was chasing my own dreams, free from my family's control. It almost felt surreal. Then one afternoon, without warning, my phone rang. It was Jade. "Hey sis," she sang, her voice cheerful and relaxed, as if nothing had ever happened between us. "I need a favour. Can you lend me $6,000? I nearly choked. "For what?" "It's this amazing online course," she gushed enthusiastically. "It teaches women how to attract rich men. I'm going to find a millionaire, get rich quick. I'll pay you back, I swear." I stared at my phone, stunned. That's insane. And disgusting. I'm not funding that. "Oh, come on," she whined. "Don't be such a stick in the mud. I broke up with William and I don't want some boring, ordinary life. I want wealth, luxury." "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. And don't call me again asking for something like that." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of pity and disgust. That was the last time I spoke to Jade, or to my parents. Months passed, and I started university, studying business management. Every day felt like a gift. Learning, growing, becoming the person I'd always wanted to be. One weekend, Grandma came to visit. As we sat together in my tiny dorm room, she smiled and, in a casual tone, dropped a bombshell. "Your parents had to sell the apartment," she said, as if it were no big deal. "They're neck-deep in debt because of Jade's ridiculous schemes. They showed up at my door asking to live with me." My breath caught. "What did you say?" A slow, satisfied smile spread across Grandma's face. I told them exactly where to go. I reminded them how they treated me, how they lied to me, and then I explained that they're no longer my problem. I hugged Grandma tightly, tears filling my eyes. "Thank you, Grandma, for everything, for believing in me, for standing up for me. I don't know where I'd be without you." She held me close, rubbing my back the way she used to when I was little. As we sat there together, a deep sense of peace washed over me. The irony of my story lies in the fact that for years, I was told to be responsible while watching Jade receive everything effortlessly. Their lives were like a game where the rules constantly changed to favour her, and I was the silent observer, trying to figure out my role in it all. Now, seeing the consequences of their own mistakes, I realise how ironic it is that those who called me the hard worker now depend on help, something they never offered me. Ultimately, the greatest irony might be that I found my freedom precisely when I stopped, seeking their approval. While Jade searches for shortcuts to wealth and status, I've built my life on authentic dreams, sweat, and honesty. They underestimated me my entire life, but today, I'm grateful for it, because their underestimation pushed me to find strength where they would never look, in myself. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.